after we got done recording, we provided her with some content. She shared it on her social platforms. And what ended up happening was it generated 7 cleaning inquiries that turned into $42,000 worth of annual revenue for our cleaning business.
Welcome to the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, the weekly show for nomads, work campers, RVers, and entrepreneurs looking to earn a living or build a business while enjoying the RV lifestyle. This week's host is Rose Willard. Let's settle in and enjoy the RV Entrepreneur Podcast, brought to you by RV Life.
Hello and welcome to the RV Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Rose Willard, your host this week, and my guest today is a fellow podcaster, Ashley Whaley. She's also a full-time RVer and the co-founder of Podshark Media, a social media and podcast agency that specializes in home service businesses. Ashley's entrepreneurial journey began at the age of 19, igniting her passion for community and autonomy. Now, fully immersed in the RV lifestyle with her husband and 2 daughters, they're reveling in newfound freedoms while growing their business and embracing homeschooling. Their bold move to RV living slashed their expenses by 85%, propelling them closer to their dream of owning land and building a home. In this episode, Ashley will share her journey into entrepreneurship, her transition to RV life, and why she believes that every entrepreneur should consider starting a podcast. So join me as we uncover the transformative power of podcasting and the endless opportunities it offers for business growth and personal fulfillment. So let's dive in and learn from Ashley right after this.
Attention detail-oriented explorers. Do you crave adventure and thrive in independent work environments? ID Plans seeks data rock stars to travel the country surveying commercial properties. Gain or use your tech skills like laser measuring and 3D cameras to gather data on everything from rooftop HVAC units to parking spaces. Challenge yourself in all weather conditions and enjoy the flexibility of managing your own schedule. This is more than a job. It's a chance to explore new places while putting your skills to the test. Competitive pay per project awaits. Are you ready to map your next adventure? Send your resume and work history to workcamperjob@idplans.com. Don't miss out. Facing the summer heat in your RV doesn't have to be a challenge. Cool RV offers a simple yet revolutionary solution to improve your air conditioning efficiency by up to 60%. Priced affordably at $84.95 each with complimentary shipping. Make the smart move to a cooler RV at coolrv.com. That's cool with a K, RV.com. Podcast listeners can save 5% with code RVLife.
Hi, Ashley. Thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Hey, Rose. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited as well to have you on as a fellow entrepreneur and podcaster to chat about why entrepreneurs should consider starting their own podcast to grow their business. So you bring a lot of energy to what you do, which is so refreshing, and I'm finding myself smiling more and more right now. So first, though, give us the Ashley 101. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, well, again, thank you so much for the opportunity to share, and hopefully I will add value to your listening community. So I have been an entrepreneur since I was 19. I started my first business when I was 19 years old, and I'm 36 now. And so I have just always loved business and entrepreneurism. And I started out in the house cleaning industry. And so my husband and I, we actually built, scaled, and sold a residential house cleaning company in Portland, Oregon. And in 2020, when the pandemic hit, we were working with a cleaning coach, and he really encouraged us to start a podcast. And at the time, we were like, why would we start a podcast? What are we going to talk about? Who would listen? But he really kept encouraging us to do so. And so we were like, okay, fine, we will start a podcast. And so we launched a podcast for our cleaning company. And what ended up happening was really cool. So we had our first guest onto our show, and our company, really our ideal client was busy professionals, busy families. And that was who we love to serve. They needed more time. And so the name of our podcast was called the More Free Time Podcast. And we put out a couple episodes in the beginning, just solo episodes. And then we had a guest on that was in our same niche. She did professional organizing. We did home cleaning. And the really cool thing that happened was that we had a really fun conversation. It was just so fun to hear her story and why she got into organizing and how it's really benefited her clients and also her family. But B was that she served the same demographic that we served. So we weren't in competition with one another, but we were more of a complement to each other's businesses. And after we got done recording, we provided her with some content. She shared it on her social platforms. And what ended up happening was it generated 7 cleaning inquiries that turned into $42,000 worth of annual revenue for our cleaning business. And after that, we went back to our coach and we were like, oh my gosh, now we understand why podcasting is so powerful. And so that was back in 2020. And from there, it just continued to elevate. And there was just so much goodness that came from podcasting. And so we actually ended up having a guest onto our show who was like, oh my gosh, I love everything about this. Can you help me launch a podcast? And so I talked with my husband and we were like, yeah, we definitely could help them. And then that just turned into a new business, which launched Podshark Media. So we launched Podshark Media in the spring of 2021. And then we sold our cleaning company in the spring of 2022. And then we actually went all in on Podshark Media in the summer of 2023. And so now we are full-time Podshark Media. We really love the home service industry because that is our background. And so we help home service businesses show up consistently through podcasting and also through social media management. So through just being in the marketing space, we found a lot of people needed help with their social media. And so we put together some really just great, simple social media offers. And so they really complement each other. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And I just, like I said at the beginning, I absolutely love business and entrepreneurism and other entrepreneurs. And we have a lot of fun.
It sounds like it. What a story. I absolutely love it. And now you guys are in an RV, right?
Yes, we are in an RV.
When did you first get into this and kind of why and what does that look like now?
Yeah. So the idea came up last summer. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, absolutely not. There's no way. Like, I don't even like camping. Like, if I was being completely honest. And so it just kind of like it got brought up and then it was like kind of got pushed aside. And then as time went on, and we had actually seen my husband's parents doing it, they were full-time RV living. And we saw the amount of money that they were saving and the freedom and flexibility that they had, which we are super driven by freedom and flexibility. And then we saw how much we were spending on our home and on our office space. And we really just like put pen to paper and looked at the numbers. And we're super driven by our values. So our core values are have fun, be honest, find solutions, and be respectful. And having fun is like at the top of the list. And when you're spending, almost $5,000 a month just in rents, it was like, man, it would be really sweet. Like we could have a lot more fun.
Yeah, you could do a lot more things.
Yes, if we got rid of that crazy expense. And so we just decided, like, again, we put pen to paper and we were like, okay, what could this really look like? And it was like, holy moly, like we could literally cut our living expenses by 85%. We could be close to our family. We could build even greater relationships with our kids because when you're in a small space, you're kind of forced to be together quite a bit. And we could really go all in on our business even more and really serve our clients at a high level without that stress of that large just rent expense. And so we went RV shopping one Friday afternoon. We looked at 10 RVs, and the last one we looked at, I walked in and I was like, oh my gosh, this one's really cool. I think this will be great. And we bought it. So it was, we're kind of like Band-Aid rippers. When we make a decision, we just go all in and we go for it. And it's usually served us pretty well. My husband and I have been married for almost 11 years now. Our oldest daughter's 10, and our youngest daughter is 7. And you could even ask them, like, oh yeah, our parents just kind of, once they decide to do something, they go for it. Yeah, so we bought the RV in early December, and then we had it moved out to our family's property out in the countryside of Oregon. Like, we are in between Newport, Oregon, like, so the coast, and then Corvallis. So we're right in the middle. We're out on 7 acres. And my sister-in-law and brother-in-law have a nice piece of property out here at 7 acres. And so we put in a RV pad, and then we bought a Connex. And so all of our stuff is stored in our Connex. And so we just went out there this last weekend and switched out our winter stuff for our summer stuff. And it was like going shopping, but with your own stuff. You didn't have to go to the mall. So that's kind of how we got into RV living. And there was a couple really hard days in the beginning because it was such a huge change where I was like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Because then we also went full time into homeschool too. So our kids were in school prior to this. And then when we made the decision to go full time RV, we also made the decision to go full time homeschool. And that, I think, just all of it all at once was kind of like, oh my gosh. And, we're in the winter of Oregon. So it's raining, it's like raining and gray. And so that was kind of a little bit difficult. But aside from the, maybe 3 really hard days, it has been so peaceful. And our business has just continued to grow. Like January and March were the best months that Podshark has ever had. And it's just cool to see. We have a really strong faith. And so it's just really cool to see what God is doing in our lives and with our family, and just that peace that we're receiving. And I wake up excited and I go to bed just with a great sense of peace. And I'm excited to see what the rest of this year will bring, and, what RV life will look like, in the future. But for right now, we're just soaking it in.
What a great attitude. I'm so excited for you guys. Such growth, and the positivity really carries you through. So you've been an entrepreneur, obviously, since you were 19, like you said. So what does being an entrepreneur mean to you? And what does that truly look like?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I think entrepreneurism is it's not for everybody, right? It takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of uncomfortableness, and there's not a lot of security in it, right? Especially in the beginning. But there's just something that's just always been since I was young, where I just always wanted to have the freedom to call the shot. I always wanted to have the freedom to make the decisions that I wanted to make and be able to just kind of live life on my own terms. And it's really hard to do that when you're working for somebody else. And I've worked for, before I launched my first business, I was working for the government actually in Minnesota. My mom has worked for the state of Minnesota for a long time, and she had gotten me this job. And it was so much fun. Like, I learned a lot, but I would get done with my work so quickly. Like, I'm a really efficient person. And so then I would be like, okay, can I just go home now? Because I'm all done with all the things that I have to do. And then I would also be like, man, I'm not really making that much money. Just like, it's hard, it was kind of hard to actually make a decent amount. And this is, back in 2006. So this is a long time ago. But there was just something in me that was like, oh my gosh, I know that I could make way more money working for myself in half the time that it would take me to be here all day, And so as a kid, I was one of those really weird kids that always loved to clean. Like, I always loved to clean. I would go over to my friend's house and I'd be like, do you want to clean and rearrange your room? And I would always clean my parents' house and my grandparents. And I just have always just really loved cleaning. And babysitting too. Like I would babysit a lot and I would take better care of the home than I would of the kids. Like if I'm just being honest. But the parents would come home and they would be like, "Oh my gosh, everything is so clean. It looks so good." And then they would keep having me, come back. And so I was like, I think I'm going to launch a cleaning company. And that had kind of been, in the background a little bit. And so I did. And then at the same time, I had my real estate license. This was in Minnesota. So I had a cleaning company in Minnesota from the time I was 19 until I was 24. And then at that time, too, I had my real estate license. So I sold real estate from 19 to 24 as well. And I loved it. Like I had so much flexibility. I was able to make a great deal of money so that I could, do what I wanted to do. This was like pre-children, right? I had my first daughter when I was 26. So kids really kind of change a lot of that. But then when I met my husband, Avery, I was just like, you know what? He was in the Air Force. And so I actually moved to Las Vegas. We were there for 8 months. And then he was done with his 4 years of service. And then we moved out to Portland. And I was like, I'm just going to launch another cleaning company because I can't see myself like going and getting a job anywhere. And then I actually, I did have a job in between when we sold our cleaning company in 2022 and before we went all in on Podshark. And it was really great for that time because we needed a sense of security. We needed some stability through that change. But man, my heart was just like, this is not for me. Like it was just not for me. I just knew that I was just I'm wired for freedom. And I would, and I'm not afraid of hard work. And I love just the creativity that entrepreneurism brings. It's so much fun, but it's hard. It is hard to get a new business off the ground. It is hard to put yourself out there. I put myself out there on social media all the time. And sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so uncomfortable. But it's like with you guys and your business, you're resetting, right? You are getting yourself outside your comfort zone because you know that you're made for more and that you have more to give and you want to not be complacent. So that's kind of just like entrepreneurism is freedom and flexibility, but it is hard work. So you don't just wake up and be able to do whatever you want every day without there being some really long and hard days that lead there. And it's going to take you 2 to 5 years to really build a successful business. It's not just going to be like, oh, here I am 1 month in and I've got all this freedom and cash flow. Like that's not realistic. So you have to understand that building a business takes time. And as long as you're willing to, suck it up, right? And do the work, then there will be great rewards. And yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way.
No, it sounds like it. And I agree with you 150%. I mean, you nailed it. All those points are exactly, all those things are the reasons why my husband and I became entrepreneurs many, many, many years ago and continue. We can't seem to really work for anyone else. We want to have that freedom and be in control of our time. But yes, put in that work, put in that time. It is not quick and easy, but it's so worth it.
Yes.
So let's dive into the world of podcasting here and why, entrepreneurs should consider having a podcast to grow their business. So you guys started a podcast and you talked a little bit about that. What are some key benefits that you've seen from incorporating the podcast? You talked a little bit, but dive in a little more about that.
Definitely. So there are a number of key benefits that really stem from having a podcast. There's the personal growth aspect of it, right? It is uncomfortable getting behind a mic and recording and listening to yourself. There's something there. And I remember the first time I was a guest on a podcast. It was in 2020 and it was actually our coach's podcast. And I was so nervous. Like my stomach was in knots. I really felt like I was going to throw up. I was like, oh my gosh, my husband and I were on it together. I was like, babe, I don't think I can do this. Like, I think I'm going to be sick. And I got it together and we recorded. And as we were recording, I was like, oh my goodness, this is so much fun. So then after we were done, I was like, whoa, that was really fun. And then we're like, okay, yes, we're doing this. We're starting a podcast. And so We did. And once we kind of got over that uncomfortableness, right? And we built that confidence of like, we can do this. We have something to say. We have a voice. We have value to add to our market. And then we just decided to stay committed, right? That's a huge part of podcasting too, is like you can make this decision of like, okay, yeah, I want to start a podcast, or yeah, it'd be cool. But you have to hold yourself accountable because it does take work too, right? Like you have to decide, are you going to show up once a week? Are you going to show up twice a week? Are you going to show up every other week? Are you going to show up once a month? Whatever you decide, please commit and follow through. And then the benefits of actually committing and following through are huge. So again, number one, you're putting yourself outside your comfort zone. So you're going to grow. You will grow personally. You will become a better communicator. You will become more of an authority in your industry because you're showing up, right? You are showing up and you are speaking your truth and you are sharing the wisdom that you have acquired through your journey, whatever that journey is, whatever business you have. I believe that any business can have a podcast. I believe that podcasting is just as powerful as having a website because what you can do is you can share what you are all about and you could drop that into somebody's email and say, hey, you want to know what it's like to work with me? Listen to this episode, right? And it's so powerful. So you can really set yourself up as an authority in your industry. Podcasting is an incredible way to produce content. So for those business owners that really struggle with what am I going to post? What do I want to say? One podcast episode can be chopped up into 100 pieces of content and splattered around all of the different platforms. Like it is incredible for content creation. The transcript can be turned into a blog, and blogging is incredible for SEO. It can be turned into a YouTube video. YouTube is one of the greatest search engines. So YouTube is incredible. And then there is the aspect of building community. So there has been so many guests, which I'm sure is the same for you too, Rose, where you've had guests onto your show and the bond and the friendship that's created is so cool. It's so fun. It goes back to that first guest that I had on in 2020. We are still friends to this day and we are still great referral partners. And it's just that friendship, that bond, that community, which I know everybody craves, right? We're in this digital world and there is something to be said about having a really dynamic conversation like we're having right now and having it be recorded and then just being so excited to like cheer each other on, right? And you keep in touch on Instagram or Facebook or, via email or whatever it might be. So there's that. But then there's also the financial reward that can come from it. Because when you have an ideal strategic partner or an ideal client on as a guest, what that does is it allows you to tap into each other's network. So with that professional organizer, I tapped into her network and she tapped into my network. And what happened was our business revenue grew because we had this great dynamic conversation. It gave our followers an inside look onto what we were all about. And it just became this win-win. And so if you do what we teach, which is the podcast method, so anybody that launches a podcast with us, we teach them the podcast method of you want to have some content of your own, but then you also want to sprinkle in guest episodes because what that will do is it will grow your network and your net worth will be determined by your network. And it's just an incredible way to build authentic referral relationships and have a lot of fun doing it and have endless amounts of content. So I love podcasting. We will forever have a podcast no matter what we're doing.
RV Life Pro isn't just a service. It's an all-in-one solution designed to make your RV experience simpler and more enjoyable. From planning your trip with precision to maintaining your RV with ease, we've got you covered every step of the way. Don't just survive the RV lifestyle, thrive in it. Visit rvlife.com to discover more about how RV Life Pro can enhance your journey.
I think that's excellent. Yeah, all great points of definitely all those benefits we have seen. And you talk about the community and the connections. I am still in touch with everyone that I have interviewed here on this podcast and go back and forth. And it has been wonderful. Let me tell you, I know you understand.
Yeah, that's so cool.
I can't express it. Yeah, it's just so cool. So How do you guys measure the success of your podcast? I mean, is it just the analytics, the numbers, or do you see other things that are success to you?
Yeah. Well, and we really measure it by how we feel when we get off of a recording. And every time, so my days for recording are Wednesday. So I recorded 2 episodes yesterday with 2 different guests. And it was just like, man, I can't wait for that to come out because it was such a great conversation. And so we really like when you feel energized by what you're doing and you know you're doing a good work, like that to us is it's success, right? If you're like,
Mhm.
man, I really don't want to record this podcast, or man, this is like such a struggle, or oh, this is not fun, then maybe it's not what you're supposed to be doing right now, right?
Yeah.
But what we've done, and we kind of took a tiny hiatus on our social in March so that we could really take all of our podcasting and our niche is home service. And we could take all of this incredible content that we have created over the last couple of years and use that on our Instagram and Facebook. I really love Instagram. Like if I were to go all in on one social media platform, it would definitely be Instagram. And it's my favorite. I think that there's just so much goodness that can come from it. But we're now taking all that content and we are putting it onto our Instagram in short form video and turning it into reels. And we are starting to gain more traction, more activity, more following, more, just DMs that are coming through and more activity that's dropping into our email inbox. And so I think when it comes to marketing, there's so many different avenues, right? There's so many different things that you can do, but you want to really have 3 things dialed in. You want to have your social media consistency, which our podcasting fuels our social media. You want to have your website where people are going to get a sense of like, okay, what is this company all about? Are they professional? Are they strategic? And then you want to have Google, right? Like you want to be able to have Google showcase you and your work, right? And so that's kind of where buyers go when they're going to purchase. And I'm sure this is probably the same for you, where you're like, okay, I am ready to, I'll just give an example of I was looking for like a photo book, right? That I wanted to get for my father-in-law for his birthday. So I Googled photo books and this company was running an ad. And so I looked at their ad and then I looked at their website and then I went ahead and looked at their social media and I was like, oh, okay, these guys seem legit. Like they seem like they would be a great company to work with and they provide a great product. And so I bought from them. I ended up ordering a photo book. But our hope with podcasting is that people will get a sense for what it feels like to work with us. We love working with businesses that our core values match, right? Have fun, be honest, find solutions, be respectful. And we really hope that through podcasting, you're going to get a sense for that is how we live our life. It's not just some fancy facade. Like we are fun. We do bring a level of fun to everything that we do. We are incredibly respectful. We care deeply for people. We are solution focused. And those things are just, they're so key. And so there is, of course, analytics that you can look at when it comes to podcasting, but you will know, you'll know when you had a guest on and then that guest shared, and then you have an influx of DMs and sales calls that show up on your books because of that podcast. You will know when you've taken that content and you've put it on your social and you're starting to get this buzz that's going on. You'll know like, okay, cool. But you'll really know when you get done with a recording and you're like, whoa, that was such a great convo. And I cannot wait for it to come out. So there's definitely layers, right, of success when looking at podcasting. But I think that those are kind of like those key indicators.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to agree with that. It definitely is a feeling. And then, yeah, when people share it and people are talking about it, or you have that sense that's going well.
Yep.
So for those that have thought about having a podcast, what are some common misconceptions that you hear from other small businesses, entrepreneurs, as to why they don't want to do a podcast or they have some limiting beliefs about it? What have you heard?
Yes. So I've heard there's a couple things where it's like, I don't know why I would start a podcast. What would be the point, right? How does it actually generate revenue? Or I'm not tech savvy. I don't know how to make it all work. Or I just don't have the time. I don't have the time to do it. And I don't even know what I would talk about, which is usually an underlying just they're scared, right? Or they're just not
Yeah.
confident in it, or they're just uncomfortable, right?
Mhm.
And that's okay. I was scared. I was not confident in podcasting at all. I was super uncomfortable. Like it was highly uncomfortable. But there just became this again goes back to that decision of, okay, this is why, right? It was rooted in a why, and it was because we knew that it could really benefit our business. It could benefit the community. It could benefit, there was just so many benefits that came from it. And
Mhm.
so for those people that are like, I want to, but I'm a little nervous, or I want to, or I have no idea where I would even start or how it works. So we have a podcast course, which is really great for individuals or businesses that want to dive into podcasting, but they want to kind of take it slow. It is a 4-week course, and you have access to that course for your lifetime. And it teaches you from A to Z how to launch a podcast and how to produce your own podcast. So, what it does is it saves you the back end production, right? Because producing a podcast is, it's an investment in your business, but the course really knocks out all of those fears or those I don't knows or how to's. So that's a great option. And then there's also the other option of, I really want to start a podcast. I'm scared, but I'm going to do it anyway, but I need some accountability. And that's really where we come into play. And so we will launch, and then we will produce the individual or the business's podcast for them. And what that really looks like is holding their hand, doing all the work, and then all they really have to do is show up and record. And so when you show up and record, we teach to batch. And you can usually just plan on an hour a week of dedicating towards your podcast. It's not that much time. It's really creative. It's really fun. And it really takes a lot of that. I don't know about the tech. I don't know how to produce it. I don't know if I should. It holds you accountable, and it just streamlines the entire process. So there's kind of two options there. But bottom line, if you want to launch a podcast, you just have to make the decision, and then you have to take action. So the name of our podcast is called All About That Action. And we are all about that action. Like, again, going back to our core value of find solutions, we really believe that there is a solution for really any problem. Some problems are bigger than others, but with the right attitude and the right skill set, like you can usually figure things out. But that's where a lot of people get stuck, is they just sit in the unknown, and then they don't do anything, and then they lose that excitement, and then they don't take any action, and then nothing happens. And then they're like, well, I'm still in the same place I was, last year, and I'm still frustrated. So you have to take action to make the decision and take the action.
Yeah, there are definitely, those challenges, those things that get in the way of ourselves. And I just love that you have that course and the other offerings, and we'll make sure we put those in the show notes of this episode. But it's great because, podcasting is a time commitment, and, being able to find guests or like crafting that quality content. What do I talk about? All that stuff. So if you're not naturally kind of inclined to that, you might just say, I'm not going to do it. But what you offer, I mean, that's great. That would be awesome for someone just starting out and they're just not sure. And you kind of help them along the way. And then they can just focus right on their recording. That's awesome. So let's say, okay, entrepreneur decides they want to start a podcast, let's say just on their own, right? What do you recommend as far as the podcasting equipment, software, any other resources? I guess your resources would be great.
Yeah. So you can keep it super simple. I mean, it can get really complex, but we love keeping things simple. So we recommend a Shure mic. There's different levels of Shure mic, but we really love Shure. I love just my AirPods, my Apple AirPods. That's what I use for headphones. And it is, again, super simple. I already had them. It didn't cost me anything extra. And they do an incredible job of blocking out the sound. So I'll give you an example. I was recording a podcast and we had a rooster running around our farm, and he was cock-a-doodle-doing the entire time of the podcast. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is totally in there. And so we got done recording, and luckily it was with a friend of mine. And I was like, Sarah, could you hear that rooster? And she was like, what do you mean? I couldn't hear it. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. So Shure and AirPods, like they work like a dream. And then as far as platforms go, like we're recording on Riverside. We use StreamYard. You can use Zoom. You don't have to have anything super fancy. Like if you already have a
Right.
Zoom account, you could just use
Mm-hmm.
Zoom and you can record there. And then you can drop it into GarageBand. We use GarageBand. Again, we're Apple product users. And then
Mm-hmm.
you want to have a Libsyn account because Libsyn is going to get your podcast out to all of the streaming platforms. But it's pretty simple. Like that's where you can
Yeah.
start. And YouTube can
Mm-hmm.
be your best friend. There is a plethora of information on the internet, right? If you're willing to invest that time, which if you're like, I don't want to research, I'm not a researcher, I just want to get to the goods. That's really where our course is a great option for people.
Yeah.
And it just takes all that time that we took to put all of, our best resources into the course. It just eliminates, probably 40 plus hours of research that somebody would really need to do to make their podcast launch.
For sure. Yeah. You just put them that much further ahead and getting to where they want to be. So that's awesome. And how often should one record shows and any other things they should be prepared for?
Yeah. So we've kind of done it all. My husband, he's really ambitious. And so there was a time where he recorded a podcast a day. So he had 100 days of a podcast a day. And that was a lot.
Wow.
When we first got going, I believe I was doing one podcast a day and it was a lot. So I would not recommend that unless you're like, you know what, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to break through these walls and this uncomfortableness and I'm going to do it. I always recommend starting out with one episode per week. And then when you're ready and you feel like, okay, I've got some great guests lined up, I've got some great solo content that I can get out there, then you can go ahead and bump it up to 2 per week. And we recommend Tuesdays and Thursdays. That kind of seems to be like the sweet days for podcast launching. And then for solo episodes, we really recommend like 7 to 10 minutes is kind of like the sweet spot. And then for guest episodes, it's usually like 25 to 30 minutes for a guest episode, which we're a little bit over here now.
We're a little over. We have so much great content though. This is awesome, guys. Keep listening.
Yeah. So I would say start with once a week.
Right. And then how do you know what to talk about, your content, your topics?
Yeah. So you want to keep it geared towards your ideal audience. So it goes back to, okay, why are you starting a podcast? What is the goal and who is your audience? And so if it's business related, like ours is marketing related with a home service niche base where we sprinkle in other entrepreneurs as well, because we just, again, love entrepreneurism. But from a marketing standpoint, we really are encouraging people to take action, to show up consistently, and we will sprinkle in marketing tips on how to grow in today's market when it comes to actually growing your business. And so if you are let's say you're a health practitioner and your ideal client is a 40-year-old mom, right? Well, then you're going to want to put out things that 40-year-old moms are going to want to listen to. And you're going to want to have guests on that are going to be relatable to that 40-year-old mom. And you're going to want to have strategic partners that are going to serve that same 40-year-old mom. So you build content around that, but you do want to keep it consistent. You don't want to just like put a podcast together and then just jump on and talk about whatever you feel like, unless it's like a personal brand podcast and you're more lifestyle based. Well, then that might be how you show up. It just really depends on how you're wanting to show up.
Yeah, no, that's very good point. Know your audience and serve them. So that's good. What advice would you give entrepreneurs that are considering starting a podcast, but are unsure of where to begin or whether it's the right move for them?
I would encourage them to be a guest on somebody's show. Reach out and find out what that would feel like to be a guest. I would encourage them to start some lives, do some lives on Instagram or Facebook. See how that feels. And if you've been thinking about it for a long time and you feel that just like pull on your heart where it's like, okay, I really believe that I should be putting myself out there through podcasting, then I would say just go for it. Just go ahead, make the decision, take the action, and go for it, because there's just so many positive things that are going to stem from it. And you're going to, you'll make some mistakes, but that's okay. I mean, the first episode that I ever recorded was really bad. And it's fine, but we got through it, right? And it just, it's with anything. The more you do it,
it's with anything,
the better you get.
Right. Yeah. Our first YouTube video. Cringe worthy, right? But you do it. You have to start. And that's the hardest part, but everyone goes through it. So
yes,
that's right. Don't be afraid. Just get out there.
Yes. Yep. Take the action.
That's right. So where can we find you then? All these links, where can we find you and get in touch with you online?
Yeah. So you can visit our website, podsharkmedia.com. And then you can also connect with me on Instagram. I am at Ashley T. Whaley. And then also our business at Podshark Media on Instagram as well. Those are the best places to connect with us.
That's awesome. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I'll make sure I put all those in our show notes. And is there anything else you would like to pass on to our listeners, our fellow entrepreneurs today? I know we covered a lot.
Yeah, no, just again, thank you so much for the opportunity to share. And we are an open book, so you guys can feel free to DM me if you have questions about podcasting, about RV living, about homeschooling. We love to just connect with others and make a positive impact. So just again, thank you so much for the opportunity to share.
Thank you so much as well. And I just wish you continued success and keep having fun like you are. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you, Rose.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm a firm believer in the power of podcasting. And as you heard from Ashley, it's an incredible tool to elevate your brand and create meaningful connections with your audience. Plus, it's a lot of fun. And I'm thrilled to be part of this RV Entrepreneur podcast and connecting with fellow RV entrepreneurs. So I hope you're at least inspired by this episode with Ashley to explore the potential of podcasting for your business. And for those of you that have been thinking about starting a podcast, take this as your sign to finally go for it. Just hit record. What do you have to lose? Or you can always reach out to Ashley and Podshark Media and let her help you launch. Sounds like a good plan, right? Okay, so I want to know who launches their podcast after listening to this episode. I want to hear from you in the RV Entrepreneur Facebook group in the comments of the weekly link share post that we have every Tuesday. Go ahead and share it in there so we can all cheer you on. Have a great week.
Attention, detail-oriented explorers. Do you crave adventure and thrive in independent work environments? ID Plans seeks data rock stars to travel the country surveying commercial properties. Gain or use your tech skills like laser measuring and 3D cameras to gather data on everything from rooftop HVAC units to parking spaces. Challenge yourself in all weather conditions and enjoy the flexibility of managing your own schedule. This is more than a job. It's a chance to explore new places while putting your skills to the test. Competitive pay per project awaits. Are you ready to map your next adventure? Send your resume and work history to workcamperjob@idplans.com. Don't miss out. Facing the summer heat in your RV doesn't have to be a challenge. Cool RV offers a simple yet revolutionary solution to improve your air conditioning efficiency by up to 60%. Priced affordably at $84.95 each with complimentary shipping. Make the smart move to a cooler RV at coolrv.com. That's cool with a K, RV.com. Podcast listeners can save 5% with code RVLife.